Hi, are you trying to learn Linux and your internet forums are not that helpful to you? Are you trying to record your local music band and the experience is more than frustrating, etc.? Or do you just want to get away from Windows and switch to a different operating system? Because this is what this video is going to be about. That is Pipewire, the Linux driver, which I will explain in further details, which is important if you want to do some music production, do some screen recording, etc. Let's go! Hi, welcome to my new video. In this video I'm going to talk about Pipewire, what it is and what its use cases are. This is relevant if you want to do some video recording, music production, working with Midi interfaces, etc. And I'm also going to talk about how it differs from the Easy4All audio driver on Windows. And you might have noticed that I did not say Pipewire audio driver, I just said Pipewire driver. Why is this the case? What's so unique about Pipewire? And why is it so drastically important and its introduction into the Linux system so changing? Let's go! Back when you were using Windows, most likely, then you were working with the Easy4All driver. And the Easy4All driver is more, a solution than really a specific driver, because Microsoft Windows' own audio driver is anything but good. It was, buggy and forget lower latency latency And of course, with Microsoft Windows itself, background services, etc., you cannot disable, slowing down your performance, increasing your latency, so and so. And another problem with Windows Easy4All is that there is one general Easy4All driver, but also some hardware-specific Easy4All derivatives. And in my case, I had an Eirael KIO, I still have, which is a Midi keyboard, but also an audio interface for your guitar jack input or for a microphone, which had its own Easy4All derivative, which was way worse than the general Easy4All driver. So I switched to that other one. But I had issues with, for example, performance hits, sometimes mid sound recording, the sound was disappearing, the CPU was freezing, etc. It was a nightmare. On Linux, on the other hand, you work with Pipewire. Pipewire is a centralized unit for managing audio, video, etc. It sits directly close to kernel space via Alsa, which enables you to gain even higher performance and even lower latency. What is latency, you might ask? Latency is how long it takes for the signal to be processed by a CPU, by your audio plugins, by your DAW, etc. The lower the latency, the better. And since on Linux you can modify background services and just also on a kernel level, but way more than that, you have far more control over your performance, your latency, etc. But this is not what this video is going to be about. It is specifically about Pipewire. The Easy4All driver on Windows has one drastic issue, that it sits in user space for you to interact with. Now, in order to communicate with the kernel space, it needs to create a middle layer to generate a tunnel of communication, which even increases latency, lowers performance, because there's more stuff to do. And with music production, etc., you want to have as less fiddling around system-wise as possible, so that the signal runs as clean through the system as possible, if that description helps. Pipewire works differently because it communicates directly with Alsa, Pipewire Alsa derivative, which is sitting direct close to the kernel. So there's no fiddling around, etc. It works directly, which is great if you want to have stable and a low latency. Another issue is from Windows versus Linux, that for example on Windows you have one version. There's only one Windows, I mean, yeah, you can install Microsoft Windows Home and Basic, etc. But to call them different versions in this kind of comparison here is a joke. On Linux, you have far more control. Of course, it depends what kind of distro you're using and what kind of hardware you're utilizing. These are all factors playing in, of course. But what I'm trying to get into, on Linux you can install different kernels. You can install the real-time kernel, which grants you system-wide predictability. It's, it's great for audio production. I do not want to delve deep into this, but I mean, there were some recent news, for example, where the Linux kernel achieved true real-time predictability, which is actually rather recent, but this is beside the point. Just for you to know how recent the biggest changes are in the Linux environment, how rapid it is evolving, growing, and changing. Secondary, you can also install the Zen kernel. The Zen kernel is more, let's just say, for the home-dwelling desktop user who wants to optimize a computer for video production, gaming. Zen kernel is more optimized for performance. What I can say is you can work with both, because on modern day hardware the differences are not that big. It's just that the real-time kernel is more tailored to music production, but the differences are not as big on modern day hardware as they used to be. Another thing you need to do on Linux is to install the real-time privileges, so that your packages and your audio sample and audio plugins have access to enough memory usage, for example, to perform at their best. In the description you can find the multiple videos linking to different another videos in which I explained these certain parts in more and further detail. And before I give you a showcase and before I give you some examples, let's just delve into some obvious facts. Microsoft Windows is bloated like nothing else. It's really like constipated to no end. It's just, it forces down programs, etc. to you. So even if you have a high performing hardware, it smashes it down with, proprietary software. It forces commercials onto you, and especially with the AI recall functionality, let us just ignore the fact that it will take 25-50 gigabytes minimum of your entire space usage. You have barely any control over your own stuff. On Linux, on the other hand, you have more control over your operating system. It depends also on your Linux distro, what kind of Linux distro you're using. If you're, for example, a more advanced Linux user, you can, for example, utilize Arch Linux and only install the packages you need. If you are a complete beginner, working with a Fedora system, for example, or you can fiddle around, you can try it out however you want. There's no real... Now, when you are working with Pipewire, you are working not specifically with one program, but a program cluster. What the hell does that mean? Pipewire is a collection of different kind of sub-programs. You can think about Pipewire more as a cell which has consumed many organelles. If you've paid attention in biology class. I mean, there are many different factors, of course. I mean, there's the video aspect, the audio aspect, etc. And Pipewire is way more than that, okay? I'm just simplifying it here. Because this video I'm focusing Pipewire from an audio perspective. And on the audio perspective front, there you're working with 3 programs, sub-programs, better called. Pipewire Pulse, Pipewire Jack, and Pipewire Alsa. Now, Pipewire is there for multiple reasons. But first things first, what we need to do is to install it. That only goes really for Arch Linux users, because on most other distros it is pre-installed. It's one of those packages that is pre-installed on everything. Especially on newer distros or newer versions of distros, it comes pre-installed with all of them. But this showcase is more there for you to know what packages exist, and yeah. Now, if you want to scratch out every single bit of extra performance you can get, that for example choosing Buffersize over another file system storage type would be recommended, in the description you can find a video about it in which I described it in more and further detail. Buffersize is especially useful if you want to utilize ZStandard, a compressing tool for maybe extra performance if your CPU is good enough. You can also find this video in the description. But yeah, let's move on. Let's go to the main part of this video. Now I've talked about some theories, some actual practices, etc. Good and fine. But how about its actual use case? How about the technical aspect? And I'm going to give you the showcase. I'm utilizing Reaper as my DAW for music production, and the installation process is more or less rather straightforward. There's not really all that much to consider here, but yeah. Because Pipewire is pretty straightforward. You install it from the repositories, its actual utensils, etc. Good and fine. Now what we also need to do, and what is highly recommended, we are going to install a Flatpak. It does not have to be a Flatpak, but I would recommend to keep as many packages isolated from your host system as possible. What is a Flatpak? You can guess. In the description you can find a video about it. Then what I also would recommend to install is qpwgraph, the graphical user interface. I will show you in a second, but yeah. What is a Flatpak? How to install Flatpak itself, and how to install Flatpak packages? In the description you can find a video in which I have described it, but the short version is copy-paste this entire command, open a terminal, copy-paste it in, enter, enter. That's it. We are going to install qpwgraph. qpwgraph is a GUI interface for Pipewire, which allows us to route video signals, audio signals, Midi signals from one tool to another, which is extremely helpful. I will just show you. Now I'm currently in the Reaper DAW. In the description you can find also a description in which I've installed Reaper and solved some issues, installed some dependencies and some extra extensions. In the description you can find all of that, but yeah, let's move on. When I go in here to Options, Preferences, and then go to Device, you can see Audio System Jack. It connects into Jack. Now, here you can modify how many input channels. I have 2 input channels and 2 output channels, which is the minimum requirement for stereo recording, but yeah, it's a different topic. Now I will open qpwgraph. It looks a bit chaotic right now, but here you can see this is my input device. You can route guitar recordings, etc. into this. This is not what I'm focusing on right now. This here is the microphone in which I'm currently speaking. And this is OBS. And what I've done, I just connected this here, capture left, to input left. Capture right. You can just drag and drop wherever you want this to be. Now you can see the green marked parts here are the audio channels. Audio output into this audio input. The blue marked are screen recording. I will show you in a second. Now here you have 2 input channels and 2 output channels. What if that's not enough for you? You want 4 or 3 input channels. Now I have 3 input channels and output channels I leave at 2. And then I need to apply it. Here now I have 3 input channels. So for example, yeah, routing guitar inputs, etc. will be a topic of another video, but it's really this easy. But one thing I need to add is I'm also working with a Midi keyboard. And Midi is marked with red parts. But I want to have an input into the Reaper itself. How am I doing this? Simple. Options, preferences, Midi inputs, Eric key IO, enable input. It could not be found because it's not activated right now, but... And now I've configured for Reaper, for example. I will explain these different routing things in another video, okay? This is just a rough introduction into pipewire itself, but just for you to have seen it at least once. For example, now into the third input channel of Reaper, there's, Starship Mattis. I do not want this. What am I going to do? I mark it and delete. And that's really easy. So you can see with the graphical interface, it shows you all the different possibilities you have with pipewire in your user space. You can modify audio, the green marked, Midi, the red marked, screen recording, the blue marked. Here you can see, this is my OBS recording session here. The screen recording is running through pipewire, which is really important to know. Pipewire is not just an audio driver for your microphone, your guitar, etc., but also it's a multi-use. And that's what I meant previously when I've said it's more a program cluster than a single program. And the possibilities are far greater of pipewire than what I'm going to explain to you right now. This is a rough simplification for you to get a rough understanding. Because now here you can see, for example, I've enabled my audio interface, my second audio interface. This here is my external microphone, which is a Zoom, which is with which I'm recording my voice, which is running into OBS, which is the voice you're currently hearing. Reaper, for example, there's no audio device currently routed into Reaper, but it's running to the speakers of the Eric key IO, which is a Midi interface, but also an audio device. This is a topic of another video again. Just you can delete, reroute, you can say I want this here, and this here. So now this is, and this here, for example, and then you can just say enable all, delete all. It's really easy to work with it. Now in the Reaper DAW, you might see that we are only interacting with a jack application. And this is because, jack is there for guitar inputs, microphone inputs, etc. put into pipewire. But this is, So now we have configured pipewire, now we have set pipewire up, now it works. Now we can jump into music production. Okay, great. Now there's one thing to consider here, because pipewire has a characteristic. It's not a nasty one per se, it's not a problematic one, because pipewire is really nice to you. It is outrageously nice to you, because what it tries to do is to automatically change buffer size and sample rate mid-production, mid-recording, which may be useful, for example, if you're utilizing pipewire for OBS, for example, and you're running many different background packages, tools, etc. in the background, and you do not want to have pipewire to impact your performance. Which on a high-end PC, this might not be all that useful to you, but also in general. Now, if you are trying to do some music production, you want to have a fixed buffer size, fixed sample rate, so there's no extra fiddling around. And we bypass all these issues simply by booting the Reaper audio session with a fixed buffer size and sample rate. And for music recording, Reaper is a great tool. And you can just open the terminal, type in Reaper, and Reaper will start automatically. I mean, you can also type it in here and type in Reaper. But why? Oh, let it just load a second. And then the sample rate, let's make it 480k. And then enter, and then Reaper. And then we press enter. And voila. Now you have a fixed buffer size and a fixed sample rate. So there are many different factors, of course, at play: hardware, distro, tools, packages, versions, all that stuff. Now you might ask, okay, packages are behaving way more stable. Now Linux native programs, audio plugins, they are, functioning perfect. What about Linux audio plugins? Which is extremely important here. Because it is possible to run Windows audio plugins inside a Linux audio session. And you do this via Yabridge running through Wine. In my case, Wine staging. In the description you can also find videos about it, wherein I describe these packages in more detail. And I will make future videos, showcasing all the different packages, Windows native running through Yabridge Wine, how they're performing, how stable are they, etc., for you to get a knowledge of it. And yeah, now what I can say in general here is that running Windows programs for Yabridge Wine staging inside a Linux audio session, what I can say is, audio-wise, I have never had any issues. The latency was perfectly running fine, so there was no complications here. Some programs, on the other hand, had some problems with the GUI. On Reaper you can bypass the GUI issue rather easily, but if you are working on an audio plugin, for example, which has more than 5 knobs, and you switch the GUI to the non-GUI interface, and there are thousands of sliders, of course this is impossible. But I will make future videos about all these different programs, etc., how they behave, how they look. But just for you to know, some Windows programs might not look perfectly fine, although they sound. Now, I've some programs of mine, there is some bugs in that regard, they can be fixed. Some others do not want to work at all. I'm talking about Windows plugins running for Yabridge Wine. But those plugins are more a rare case, okay? So do not be all that concerned here, but I will make future videos about it. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this video was kind of helpful, interesting, educational. In the description you can find many different videos in which I've explained all the different steps I've taken in this video in more and further detail. And yeah, keep working, because there's still much to do, and go read fucking Berserk.